Welcome to the Living Superhuman Fitness Podcast, where we take you inside our gym, CrossFit Palm Beach, each week. It's here that we are creating new superhumans every day, transforming people's lives, helping them reach a level of health they never knew possible. We strive to answer your most burning questions on fitness, health, nutrition, training, motivation, mindset, lifestyle, and more. If you have a question, please email us at info@crossfitpalmbeach.com. You can also learn more on our blog, livingsuperhuman.com. And if you have a moment, we'd love a review from you on iTunes. All right, it's time. Let's stop being average and start living superhuman. Hey guys, welcome to the Living Superhuman Fitness Podcast. My name is Andrew Frezza, and I'm joined today by
Whitney Stevenson,
Danielle Maher,
Melissa Dixon.
I just heard your last name for the first time. This is
Nobody
pretty
knew
cool.
how to say it till now.
So today's podcast, we're going to be talking about a female perspective on CrossFit and BeachFit. And I just realized that I have no place in this podcast right now. So I'm going to try to stay out of it, kind of guide the conversation. But we're going to cover obstacles that women face when starting CrossFit or BeachFit. We're going to cover some differences in nutrition that women and men might have, and some of the common mistakes that Danielle specifically experiences when working with men and women. And then differences in biology and physiology, because there are some real, hormonal differences and things like that between women and men that affect gym performance and affect how you can set goals and what you can kind of lay out as like a timeline for achieving certain things. So I'm going to kick it to you guys. My first question is, when you think about a female perspective as it relates to fitness or CrossFit and BeachFit and how that might be different from what a man experiences, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you?
Well, we just talked about it. I think just in general, not being too specific, but if we looked at the world, I guess, you have a lot of women who never went to the gym growing up, or it just wasn't on their radar if you weren't an athlete. So maybe stepping into a CrossFit gym, they're just totally uninformed. They don't know how much weight they can lift. They don't even know relative what a 15-pound dumbbell is to something they lift day to day, like a gallon of milk or something. And then you have men who come in who maybe they did grow up or went to the gym or went to Gold's Gym or did bodybuilding. But they're informed, but they're maybe misinformed, not as far as what health and fitness should look like, but more of I need to lift weights and look good and not necessarily feel good or perform well. So I think for women especially, just being uninformed makes you hesitate and just unfamiliar, and not that maybe you just need more guidance or just more education around hey, you lift 15 pounds every day when you get your kid out of the car seat, or whatever it is that you're doing. You're probably moving more weight safely than you are in the gym, and you could definitely move that weight safely with a coach's eye and then build a little bit more strength. And there's so much more we can talk about around strength building and why that's good for women, but I know you had something as well as far as perspectives.
Yeah, so just one thing that I've seen a lot of or experienced just with athletes is women, when they come in, they're just super hesitant because they're intimidated, probably because they're completely uninformed and nobody likes going to something that's just totally foreign. But then with guys, I feel like it's a little bit more of an ego. Maybe they have never done it, and so they're a little uninformed, but they know that they're not going to come in and be a shining star like they were when they were in high school in the weightlifting room, that sort of thing. So more of an ego standpoint there is kind of the main difference that I've seen between men and women primarily.
Yeah, I think also just the stories of what you should and shouldn't do. I think so many ladies are so scared of I can't touch this 25-pound dumbbell because I'm going to get bulky. And I'm your kid weighs freaking 45 pounds and you're picking him, you don't get bulky lifting him around. So I think that comes from being, misinformed, because there's a lot of information out there or just pictures or whatever that could make them associate weightlifting or CrossFit with that body image. but they're also just uninformed. Like if they were informed the right way, then they would have a totally different perspective about it.
Yeah, I think the body image is a huge barrier with the CrossFit brand. So like having our BeachFit program, just saying it's BeachFit takes away that instant intimidation of where a woman's mind goes to straight to body image because of CrossFit and CrossFit Games, and the elite athletes that are associated with it do a lot to promote their bodies to be that way. So we have like an association between what a woman in CrossFit looks like when they're a games athlete, and not just when you walk in the gym, you immediately are like, that's sexy, I want to look like her. And you don't think, oh, that's CrossFit. You think, like, if you have that games mind, if you have that image of the games athlete in your mind.
Yeah. We talked about this on another podcast too, and like the idea of women having an ideal image for themselves that's not themselves. So like opening up a magazine and being influenced, like, oh, I need to look a certain way, or this is what the ideal image is. But like, because of who you are and your genetics and your build and whatever, like you may never look like that. So that's not your ideal image. And like no one really knows what their ideal body image is, because there isn't one for you. Like there just isn't. There's just what we have in a magazine or on Instagram or something like that. So just kind of like being real with yourself and knowing that like, just because it's on a billboard or promoting a perfume doesn't mean it's for you. You know, it doesn't mean that's your ideal, healthiest, best self. And then that's the goal of CrossFit, you know, at the bare bones, is for you to be healthy for a really long time, and living independently and fighting off any chronic illness or chronic disease, not to look a certain way or be in a magazine, even though we have those outlier, you know, athletes and individuals that do that.
How much of the body image stuff is like just a pure like getting enough confidence to walk into the gym and be around other people and like be seen in workout clothes, be seen, like, you know, especially if you have some weight to lose and you're not, you know, like I don't know if any of us are ever 100% comfortable in our bodies, but like you're really struggling from a comfort level of like being seen. How prevalent is that where you see people are just struggling with that aspect?
I mean, I bet I haven't personally struggled with that. I've struggled with body image issues in a different way, but the amount of comments and remarks that I've encountered just based on how I look makes me know that that is probably a 95% influencer. Like people are so wrapped up in what people look like and how things look or how things fit, and you know, how many other people are looking at them. Like that is such a factor. I think that's probably a bigger factor than we want to talk about, or even that we kind of give light to in here.
I think there's like a mindset, like depending on how you look at it, I know that it's a huge factor, because I was that person coming in very overweight. I just had 2 children. My second one was 4 months old when I started CrossFit here. And I was the biggest girl in class, you know, and I was always like the slowest and the biggest, and just having that like in the back of your mind when you're not comfortable in your own body, you think everybody is looking at that and seeing only that, seeing what those things that you're feeling, and being able to change your mindset of like, well, this isn't forever, this is temporary, and being able to shed that and be around people who are, you know, string beans and wearing only tank tops or wearing only sports bras and shorts, and not having the ego to say like, well, she's better than me because she looks better than me or looks the way that I want to look. It's really hard to come in and work out next to that if you have a mindset that's pretty fixed. That's not, well, I'm doing the work right now to get towards that. You know, if you don't focus on those little wins every day and those, you know, the little changes on the scale or your in-body scan, like that can become really overwhelming pretty easy, and it could really derail you if you let it.
It really is, like, at least for me, when I gained a bunch of weight a couple years back. Like the second I stopped like feeling sorry for myself and just like put in the work, that's when the magic happens. So like just switching that mindset from oh poor me to no, I'm in here, I'm working hard, I'm doing the right things, like it's gonna pay off, and just knowing that if you just keep with that, keep with it, then you can be Susie Q, who looks jacked and skinny or whatever you want to be, but just changing from that oh poor me mindset I think is a huge deal.
How much of it is it like, so it sounds like it's a combination of like, you need to change some stuff mentally, you need to show up consistently, but then I think part of it is like as the physical changes start to happen, that kind of fuels this cycle of like the mental side becomes a little bit easier. So how much of it is like a pure mental like change in mindset versus like as a byproduct of showing up and actually seeing results, you're able to change your mindset? Does that make sense?
I think within like 3 weeks of you just like repeatedly telling yourself and reprogramming your mind, the second you start to see those results and see it pay off, then it's just like second nature. Like it comes so quickly after that. If you can just hold out for a few weeks, put in the work, do what you need to do, have an accountability partner, then it's like, it becomes so easy. It literally gets easier every single day.
And most likely somebody, not to make it weird, but like somebody will see it probably before you. Like as a coach, I can see change so fast in people, and I let them know. I'm like, hey, you're making a transformation. And they're like, really? Like, and I think that, you know, when you get that kind of boost from somebody else seeing your positive changes and positive transformation, like it starts making it so much easier to continue showing up and like making those small changes. And I think that you do get that effect of, wow, like I need to take care of a couple other things, and my performance is going to be better, or you know, my work performance is going to be better because I'm more mentally clear when I'm there, because I'm able to just work out and get everything I need out of that hour, and then by the time I go show up at work, I feel really good, and then I'm eating better, and then it becomes this like domino effect of everything starts taking care of something else, and you start feeling really good. But I do think that your image or self-image may keep you from walking in the door, like because there is that story of, you know, I need to be in shape to even be in here, and like yes, we are here for the in shape people, but we are just as here for people that are out of shape, you know, people that are struggling with something, people that are, you know, maybe do have a body image issue or have trouble with nutrition or can't get off the couch. Like we're just as much here for them as we are for the person that can do 50-foot handstand walks, you know. We're here for both of those. And like
the coolest part about CrossFit is that you might walk in today and see that person doing 50-foot handstand walks, and they might have been 300 pounds 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Like there's so many stories that you see this super fit person and you're like, oh my gosh, like they've always been that way. Clearly it's been easy for them. And then you get to know them through the gym and the community, and you're like, I cannot believe their transformation. Like that doesn't seem like it's physically possible. And in your mindset, or in my mindset previously, before I walked through these doors, it was me 100% mental transformation of, I know these transformations exist, and I know that it's like something that isn't for free. Like I have to put the work into it, so I'm just going to do the work. And I've seen so many people come in these doors and walk right back out of these doors because they never got the mental change. I think even when they have, you know, increasing abilities, and even when they have shed some weight, they don't take the mental side, they don't take care of their mental side of it enough to where they actually continue. They can't celebrate those small wins. They can't look past, well, I still can't do a burpee, and I've been doing this for a year, and I still can't get all the way to the floor. That's okay. That doesn't mean that it's not possible. It just means we have to do more work. It just means there's something else you're not taking care of. Is it your nutrition at home? Is it the fact that you're still maybe drinking alcohol? Or what can we do physically to support that? But you have to mentally change your outlook to be able to say, okay, I'm gonna put in a little bit more work, and be humble enough to say, you know, these are the things that are holding me back, when you don't have those wins to celebrate too.
The one thing that I've noticed from the coaching side is like an openness to change. And sometimes, because I try to do the same thing that Whitney does, is when I see some kind of progress, especially in a new athlete, is to try to recognize it, whether it's being able to squat a little bit deeper, being able to go a little harder in a workout, getting a faster time potentially, cutting a little bit of weight or looking a little bit more toned. I try to recognize those things, and every once in a while you'll get a response where that person clearly is not accepting that compliment, and they're either maybe looking for something, their idea of progress is defined in a very, very specific way, or they haven't seen it yet in the mirror, and we see ourselves every day, so it's hard for us to see it, and they feel like you're being insincere, or they're not willing to accept that. And I think it just starts with being like open to all forms of change, and then once you see that, it doesn't matter whether you came in to lose weight or you came in to add muscle and look more toned. If you are squatting deep, you're like, yeah, I'm making progress. Like, this isn't quite what I came in for, but I'm making progress in one way. I have a tangible way I'm seeing progress. It's going to come in other ways too. And just being open to that idea.
People get really, really frustrated or obsessing over like one specific skill. Like, I want to get a pull-up, or I want to string together toes to bar. And like, they expect that change to happen when we have it on Tuesday one week and Thursday the next week. So they have like 9 days of change to make it happen, and they just expect it to be strung together by the next Thursday. Mm-hmm. And they get so frustrated on Thursday when, well, on Tuesday I had 3 and now I can't get 2. And they don't even like look at, this is a totally different stimulus of a workout that you're dealing against. This is running in toes to bar, and this is ski erg in toes to bar. Like, they just beat themselves up over the skill, and they can't see past that one thing, that one measurement of progress. And they're not looking at the big picture. Like, what is changing in you? What else have you accomplished in those 8 days to celebrate, instead of what are you beating yourself up over? You can't just take things and beat yourself up consistently and expect yourself to succeed.
Cool. Let's talk about like the barbell side of things, or just, if someone's not doing the barbell, they're doing just BeachFit, and like going up in weights and the fear of maybe adding too much bulk, adding too much muscle. What do you say to that, or how have you guys dealt with that yourselves of being afraid to add too much weight, or maybe it's an injury thing, maybe you're afraid to get hurt and you're just not confident with the technique, you're uninformed, as Whitney said. Like, what do you guys have for that?
I mean, most of my experience for this is like just working with people, like working with women who they've never picked up a kettlebell before. And we talked about this last night in like book club a little bit, and just being a coach, and the better I am at a coach, the more confident I am setting a bar for somebody. So I can look at somebody, how they're moving, and know they're good to add 6 more pounds or pick up the heavier kettlebell or whatever it is. And me giving them the boost, like, hey, it's time, you're moving safely, let's get that 26 pound, let's get the purple kettlebell, or and not being afraid to encourage people to do that. Because I think at any point, especially when we're in BeachFit, like, you're never doing a movement that you wouldn't be doing in your life. And you're probably doing it in your life heavier than you're doing next door. Mm-hmm. Picking up a bag, picking up a box, moving furniture, getting a super heavy, Costco bin filled with, random goods. Like, just being able to balance all of that, it will just look differently next door because you're having that weight in the form of a kettlebell or a dumbbell. And so I just don't think that a lot of people know how much weight that they're actually dealing with throughout their day. Mm-hmm. And kind of just allowing them to I relate a lot of things to like a gallon of milk, like, especially when I'm talking about like technique and stuff, and then it seems to like resonate with them. Like, hey, if you held a gallon of milk out here, like, you wouldn't be able to do that. So let's keep that bar closer or do something different. And a lot of people, when you start to relate things, weight in the gym to things that they're doing outside of the gym, it becomes a little bit easier for them to like, oh, like, you're right, like, I can do this a little bit heavier, or I should be doing this a little bit more because I hauled that bag of mulch in the yard or whatever it was. So I think just being able to relate gym to outside will give people perspective and almost take a little bit of fear out of it, because they're like, oh yeah, like, I do like move some things around that are pretty heavy in my life, not just avoiding it all the time.
it's cool when someone celebrates that win. They're like, oh wow, I did this thing so easy outside the gym now because of what I've been doing. And that becomes really empowering. That allows you to take some of the pressure off the body image side. I see that a lot where less and less focus becomes on that because you're like, wow, look what I'm capable of. And once that happens, that becomes a really cool shift for a lot of women.
I mean, and even like loading a suitcase into a car, or packing up a picnic basket, or hoisting a longboard over your car, like all of that is not light. Like I don't think it's light, and I lift pretty heavy. And so just having the mental preparation to attack those things with training in the gym, with weight training in the gym, I think just gives you more confidence to live your life and feel good about it.
Yeah, and I have people tell me all the time, like, why do I need to snatch, or why do I need to, I clearly don't need to do this because I'm older now, or that conversation of relating it and how do we make that functional, or why do I need to go heavier because a dog food bag is 14 pounds, or you know what I mean? Like they have like limiting factors to relating it to the outside world too. And I think like it's so important to let them know like why we go heavier, and related to the body image, there is a lot wrapped up in that for women, but in general, like going heavier, that longboard on your car is an odd object. It's not controllable like a barbell. It's not controllable like a dumbbell or a kettlebell. It's way more of an odd object that you're at more risk of injury if that's heavy for you. So we got to make that lighter compared to what you're capable of. And like, if you can't snatch overhead, a heavier weight than your longboard, why are you lifting your longboard over your head to get it on the car?
Yeah.
And like, so making those things more controllable so you're at less risk of injury in your entire life.
Yeah. And life will test your limits. Like life is going to throw things at you that's going to test those limits you have. And if you never train them, if you never push your limits, then when you get tested, you're going to get injured. You're going to get crushed. You're going to have more of a obstacle to overcome than if you train your limits. If you're in here every day, kind of like, not necessarily every day ending on the floor in your workout, but if you're in here every day and making a point to test or train those limits and increase your limits, then when life does throw those tests at you, you're going to be able to handle them a little easier, or with a better recovery, or whatever the test that you may encounter is, you're just going to be able to move through it a little bit better.
Yeah, I think it's a misinformation too on what creates change, whether that's weight loss change or getting toned, which in order to get toned, you have to add muscle. Like you may not want to add 20 pounds of muscle, but you have to add some muscle to get that toned look. And in order to create change, there has to be stimulus, there has to be challenge there. And if you're someone who always grabs the pink kettlebell because you're the pink kettlebell person, regardless of whether it's deadlifts or kettlebell swings, or like all these movements should also have different associated weights that you can challenge yourself with, there's never a stimulus there to create change, and therefore you're not going to get the goals that you came here for. And I mean, can you guys speak to how hard it is to gain weight, whether you're a guy or a girl? I mean, we have some guys in here that are in their 20s, perfectly healthy, that are just having trouble putting on any kind of muscle. As a female, hormonally, you're built even differently. Like you've tried to put on weight, it's hard to do, right?
Yeah, you have to, I mean, it's hard to do to put on like the right way, but you have to eat. Like I eat like it's another job. Like I record all of my food, and I don't record my food because I'm like, oh, I'm worried that I won't, or I'm going to eat too much. I record my food because I am worried I'm actually going to eat too little. Like as a woman, I think you just have a different mentality around food, like we should be eating less or whatever. We shouldn't, but it's a whole other subject. I record just so I'm holding myself accountable to eating enough, making sure that I'm getting enough calories in, enough carbs, enough protein. You can't, it's not because you're lifting weight, you're gonna instantly add muscle. Like some people are very blessed and they can, put muscle on like super easily, but that's not the majority. And those are a few outlier people. And it takes a lot of work to put on weight that's going to make you seem extremely bulky, or some women like to refer to it as manly. Like that's not going to instantly happen just because you're getting fit. Like and
you can always dial it back.
You can always communicate with a coach if you find that something about your physical image is something that maybe you don't like. You can communicate with a coach. Maybe it turns out you start to like it. Maybe it turns out you do like your big legs because you can freaking squat heavy, or you can deadlift a lot of weight, or maybe it turns out you really like to have your lean, like aerobic look because you're also good at those aerobic workouts. Like it's something that I think it's more of like a relationship with yourself, and that is still part of your diet, what you're intaking. Like your relationship with yourself is part of that, and I think that's something that you can totally work on and develop, and doesn't need to be healthy or doesn't need to be established before you start working out. And I think it's something that you can I still have to consistently work on it,
That's good.
I got nothing.
Thanks, Danielle.
Like on the body image side of it, it's funny to me because I have a lot of women who come up to me and are like, I bulk easily. And they use that word like before the conversation even starts. Like, that's the start. I bulk easily. I know what that feels like because I was in that mentality too of like, I'm gonna do this, but I'm not gonna get too bulky, and thinking like, because I've always been the big girl. I've always been 5'9". I've always been like the cheerleader who can't be the flyer, the one who's lifting the girls up. I've always been the strong girl, but I've always been the big girl. Like that's my thing. People have always called me big, and like buying into that mentality, I thought coming in here like, oh, I'm gonna get big quick. Like I'm gonna have to reserve myself because I'm gonna get big. And all the time, even like my college rowing friends who see me now, they're like, this is the skinniest you've ever been. Like this is the smallest I've ever been. Weight-wise, I'm 30 pounds less than when I was a rower.
But like,
and I think
that should be the healthiest. Like, not them saying like this is the skinniest, or like in your brain, like it should trigger to I am the healthiest. Like I would correct people. I would be like, I am actually the healthiest I've ever been. Not the skinniest, not the whatever, not the smallest. Like, it's not our job as women to be smaller. Like, I want to be freaking bigger. I want people to be like, I'm afraid of her. She's so nice, but she might eat me. And like, that's my goal. Like,
We've already accomplished that.
I was gonna say,
I want the strange guys walking down US 1 to fear me.
as I inch my chair away.
But it's true though, like the language is so important because like calling me a big girl my whole life, I've had this image of like, oh, you've got linebacker shoulders, and like saying those masculine things to a woman is very different. And like I received it in a positive way because I'm like put my positive twist on everything in my life. Like, oh yeah, like I'm one of the guys and I've got 4 brothers, so I just want to be like the guys, And like I didn't take it that way, but it could be very like detrimental to a woman's psyche. And then saying like, oh, you're the skinniest you've ever been, like, that further perpetuates or promotes that skinny is the objective, and it's not. Even though like we have a lot of people who are bought into that, like I am the leanest I've ever been. Physically on the scale, I'm the leanest I've ever been. And I think that people look at bulk and like the physique of seeing muscles on a woman and think that's bulky. But if you look at like muscle mass, I am not the most massive I've ever been. I'm not the most powerful I've ever been. I'm the most lean I've ever been, so you see my muscles, so it comes off as big. Like when you see a games athlete in person, when I met Katrin, I was like, she's kind of tiny. But when you see her in videos, when she's pumped and she's in the middle of a workout, she looks massive because she's so cut, she's so lean, and you see everything. So there's like...
I think you're right during a workout, but I also would say, like, I would not relate those terms to you at all. I would say you're very lean, and I think the thing that separates it in my mind is like people think that they're going to start this and add a lot of muscle, but really the difference between looking lean versus looking bulky is actually the body fat piece. It's not the muscle piece. It's if you get lean body fat wise, yes, you're going to look more muscular if you have muscle there. But I think most women are not going to call you bulky, Melissa, where you are now. So they're going to call you lean, right? They'd said to you, this is the skinniest you've ever been, when you still have a ton of muscle on you, right? So,
and you're going to feel bulky and you're going to get bigger if you don't do the nutrition work to get leaner as you add muscle. So I think that's where, like, in the starting process, like I tell a lot of people who are bigger when they start, like, you might not like the numbers on the scale because you might actually add muscle faster than you're losing fat in some cases, or you might have a lot of inflammation because you might actually see the numbers go up in the beginning. And that's uncomfortable for a woman because then they feel bigger, the clothes fit tighter, and they start panicking like, this is going the wrong way. And then you have to do the nutrition work to make yourself go in the opposite direction, you know, and make that lean muscle work for you.
And we're seeing it with the in-body test now of how necessary that is, because if people are just relying on the scale, the pound difference is, one, it's minimal, so it's not really even like significant statistically. And then two, it's not showing the full picture. This not the same way pictures would, or measurements, or especially the in-body, of showing that body fat percentage. And we've had several instances where people have either lost just a pound on the scale or not even lost at all, but their body fat is changing. And that becomes really key, is, are you measuring the right ways? Because if it's just scale and how you look in the mirror every day, first of all, you forgot how you looked 2 weeks ago. You think you remember, but you don't. And if you don't have pictures and body fat testing and measurements, which are much better benchmarks, then you're not gonna see your progress.
Yeah, I think too, like, a lot of people come in with goals that are like number related, like a number on the scale, and it's usually like a past number. Like, well, in high school I weighed like 112 pounds, so I don't know why I don't weigh that anymore. And it's like, okay, you're 30 something now, like you're not the same individual, like literally not even the same. And also, like, your ideal, like, is there an ideal body weight? Like, no. Like, if somebody, I know how much I weigh, but like, I don't think a like group of 10 people would guess exactly how much I weigh, because my body doesn't necessarily, like, my body image doesn't reflect like how much I actually weigh. So if I was so focused on like the number, I wouldn't be able to perform the way I'd perform. I wouldn't weigh as much as I do. And like, I don't know, I just don't think that we know, or there's a way for us to find out how much we should or shouldn't weigh on the scale. I think that's why the in-body is really cool, because not only giving you like your body fat or body mass index or body fat percentage, but it also shows your imbalances, shows how much bigger your right leg is than your left leg. And not so you can be like, well, crap, I don't know how to fix this, but so you can fix it. So you know,
left leg pistols for you.
yeah, so you know what to work on, you know how to create more balance within your body. And like, honestly, there is no better feeling like that I can have, or I think that anyone can have, is to go into a workout or do a workout feeling balanced, feeling good, feeling healthy. Like, that is such a good feeling. And we all deal with so many like minor aches, and we're always constantly trying to get better. Like, we don't always feel that way. We don't always feel, 100%, because you're always trying to work on something or fix those imbalances. And like, with the in-body, it gives you like that direct kind of like line of knowledge of, okay, where can I get better? And then once you start working on that, your workouts are going to feel better, not because you weigh less, but because you're targeting those areas that actually need work.
Yeah. Well, now that we kind of touched on a little bit of nutrition stuff, I want to kind of turn over to you, Danielle, and I know you've worked with probably more women than men, but you've worked with both. So if we were to kind of, on average, or sum it up, like, what are some of the key mistakes when someone's first coming to you and you start to address their habits, you start to address their food logs? What are the themes you're seeing with women more so than men, of mistakes that you're making that are some of the first habits you're giving them to change?
I mean, a lot of girls are under eating first and foremost, just because they're scared. They don't know how much to eat. They don't want to eat too much because they don't want to gain weight. But also like the fear of like fueling yourself, like eating carbs, eating enough protein, getting in like adequate nutrition. Like, people just don't do it. And then they'll go, I mean, so many women will like eat one thing a day and then drink a bottle of wine each night or whatever it may be, but just like not fueling themselves and coming in here and expecting to get leaner, expecting to put on muscle, expecting to get fitter, but then like eating one egg the entire day. And it's crazy how like the torture that women put themselves through, specifically starving themselves day in and day out just to hopefully fit into their high school jeans or whatever they have in their head, that their ideal image that is either unreachable or just like so past what they should be reaching for. So
I love that you brought all of that up. I think it's so important. I dealt a little bit with it when we did our New You challenge, where we would have, you know, very new members straight off the couch kind of record a week of eating. And it was very similar to that. Like, just, I was in shock. And then I also was sort of like, wow, like, I kind of had this mentality a little bit when I worked at the mall. I would just not eat because I was like, well, there's really no like healthy options. So the best next thing is, I guess, not eating. And I didn't understand that was actually way worse than like getting something that was like maybe more on the unhealthy side and just kind of modifying it, like taking off the bun or getting no cheese or getting a Chipotle rice bowl without, you know, the cheese or the sour cream or whatever it is. Like, I didn't know. I just thought it was better for me to like avoid that altogether because I wasn't prepping it. And like, really that was just damaging my metabolism and like ruining any kind of like nutritional work that I had been doing like the couple days before. And I don't know, I think that having a relationship with food as fuel is so important. Like British cycling teams, like the main team that does like the Tour de France, I think one of their teammates won the Tour de France like a few years ago. I forget his name, but in general, they have really good like lifestyle habits, and they always refer to their meals as fuel. They don't say like, what are you going to eat next, or where are we going to eat? They say, how are we going to fuel ourselves? How are you going to fuel yourself? And I started doing that because like, it all of a sudden made me really think about like dinner or lunch, because my fuel that night was going to help me in my either workout the next day or coaching or have my brain ready to do a podcast or whatever it was. Like, if I'm thinking about it as fuel versus dinner or whatever, I'm more likely to like be more responsible around it. And I think that we need to remember, like, this is how we are alive, like with this food that is so easily available for us. Like, you know, whatever, if we go back in our history, like 10 people ago, like it was like, their purpose of life was, how do we farm this? How do we make this accessible? How do we distribute this so other people can live longer? And like, now it's easy because we just go to Publix or Whole Foods or whatever, and it's there for us. But
thank goodness.
I think that if we have a little shift, and that's not to say like you have to think about food this way your entire life. Like, obviously you're going to go out, you're going to have the nights out, you're going to have friends come over, you're going to have a dinner, you're going to have Thanksgiving and holidays where it's not necessarily fuel oriented, but if you can have maybe a 75% fuel oriented mindset around food, you're going to find yourself, you know, being more respectful for yourself for food, and then also setting yourself up better throughout the whole day. And obviously you're going to want to fuel yourself versus not fuel yourself.
And I think like once you spend a little bit of time like eating properly and noticing the differences like in your body, it makes it so much easier to make like a better choice.
Yeah.
Like last night I had like so much fat left, and we have this like, I don't know, I call it yum yum sauce, like whatever you get when you go to like a hibachi grill. We have it at our house, and I was like, I could have like a whole serving of this and like with my cauliflower fried rice, and I'm like looking at it and I'm like, I'm gonna feel disgusting tomorrow if I eat this, even if it fits. And then I ate a whole avocado instead, but I was like, I know that my joints are gonna feel disgusting if I eat this instead. And so I was like, there's no way. But like, once you kind of experience that, those decisions become so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, like, you touched on it, you both touched on it, like, everyone has a relationship with food, whether it's a good one or a bad one. And like I think women tend to be the emotional eaters more so than men, like tying emotions into food. And the thing that changed for me that really changed my nutrition was like, I've always said like, oh, I love food. But when I said I loved food, I meant like I loved to indulge. And for me, it was like heavy cream sauces and like really high fat, really high carb, in the wrong kind of carb department meals. And I was like on Tasty looking up fancy recipes, you know, and like not looking at what it was, just looking at like how luxurious it looked. And when I changed my relationship with food to loving how it makes me feel and loving what I was, like the relationship that I was in with food, like literally broccoli, like just loving broccoli and how it makes me feel after I eat those kind of foods and how proud I feel when I make the decision for my body. Like changing your relationship with food is like super key to, I think women suffer from it way more than men in that emotional department that we assign for like, but I can't not have this, you know, because when my kids act up, I go to get this ice cream or whatever, and like changing the whole scenario around your relationship with food is important.
I think that's such a good point. Like the same high that you get from like eating a super nasty meal and you feel great for the 20 minutes that you're eating it, like when you do make the good decision and you go with broccoli or you go with chicken or whatever the healthier option is, like the high that you got from that 20-minute meal is the same, but like so much more long lasting, so much more rewarding than that 20 minutes of ice cream.
Yeah.
And then you feel horrible after.
That bucket of fried chicken that you're gonna feel so gross for 6 hours, you're just gonna feel, you know what I mean? Like that.
You just want to go to bed.
Yeah, just take a nap.
Yeah.
One thing I notice a lot is as it relates to under eating as a weight loss strategy and not really fully understanding like the long-term hormonal impact of that, and like generally that works like once, twice, maybe 3 times in someone's life, and then it starts to become less effective. And usually as it's becoming less effective, it's also doing more and more and more damage of like just the pure under eating as a, you know, weight loss strategy. And I think it's just important to note that there is more damage there being done than just like I'm not losing weight versus I am losing weight. And that can actually prevent a lot of people from losing weight for a long period of time, even once they do clean up their stuff, because they've done more damage by this significant under eating approach.
I think like specifically on that topic, something that really opened my eyes to it, like looking at someone who is on a medication where they can't eat, and if you look at it from a clinical perspective of like, I'm on this medicine, it inhibits me from feeling hunger, so I don't eat. And you look at that person like a patient and how someone would be treated if that's their symptom of having no hunger, and their body goes into the same starvation mode as a woman who's not eating. Mm-hmm. It's really easy for anybody to go, oh, the patient that's taking the meds needs to feel hunger, so they should probably eat when they're not hungry so they get fuel. But take it out and put a woman in that same seat and think of it as just a woman not eating because she thinks it's the best option at the food court, is not eating at all. Her body's going through the same exact starvation mode as that patient on medicine.
Yeah, you
and
can train
she
it.
should be treated the same way as that person. She needs to train herself to eat in those scenarios when she's not hungry or just not wanting to eat. Or like, if you look at it like black and white, it's really simple and people see it like, oh yeah, of course, it's common sense, she should be eating. But you have to like step out of the scenario, you know? If you put it in the terms of like looking at it as anybody, it's easy. It's an easy decision to make.
Mm-hmm. It should be, you know, your almost number one priority. Food, fuel, like so many, and I'm totally guilty of saying this too, but like finish their day, oh, I only had time to eat a bar, or I only had time to eat one time. I've only eaten since breakfast, and it's like, dang, just kind of screwed my whole day. Like it should, and it will at first because you're building in a habit, and it will feel like a job, a chore. But after a while, like Danielle says, like after like 2 or 3 weeks, like once you've started building in these habits, like it's no longer a job. It's no longer a chore to like make the healthy choice. And I think for women, something that they should be doing more of is eating more and carving time out to do that. Not carving time out just to make your kids lunch and then you just eating whatever crackers are left over and cheese because that's convenient for you. Because if you do that, 52 weeks a year over 18 years, that's a lot of you neglecting yourself. And that's the real issue there, is that like you're just as important and you need to be setting a good example. So make yourself the healthy lunch, eat it, then create the lunch for the kids or whatever it is. That's one example. There's plenty of examples around that as well. I think this could literally be a whole nother podcast.
All right, well, we'll switch gears a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about like the real physiological differences between men and women. And I'm personally thinking about this from more of the standpoint of someone is really bought in. They are like been doing BeachFit or CrossFit for a little while. They've seen some results, but they're hitting obstacles where, man, I can't get muscle ups. I can't get handstand push-ups because like the guys just hop up there and do it. Like this person hasn't even been doing it that long. Or maybe it's along the lines of like, you know, I avoid strength days in CrossFit because there's still that like, I don't know what it is exactly, and deferring to you guys on it, but just like seeing workouts that maybe look like they're built more for men versus women. So
You mean bench press day?
we can't say that with Whitney here. She's better than me at that. So
The guys show up for bench press.
but like, I mean, one thing that stands out to me is like women are just gonna have a lot harder time putting on upper body strength. Like they're pretty good lower body wise, and on average they move better and I think are stronger than the men pound for pound lower body wise. But it's really difficult for women to put on that upper body strength, which is sort of necessary for pretty much any gymnastics movement that we do in CrossFit or BeachFit.
I think it's also something too, like especially if you've been doing CrossFit or BeachFit for a while and it's a point of frustration, it's probably like one of those things that you could work on more, and maybe you're avoiding it because it is that like weakness and you have like a mental association with, oh, well, I'm not good at it, so I don't want to show everyone else how not good I am at this. And that's really not the case. Like, maybe every day there's a little bit of progress that you can be making, or every week there's a couple extra things that you can be doing to get yourself a little bit more just mentally confident. I think so many results are tied into having a little mental confidence around things because you just allow yourself the opportunity to do it versus, you know, if you don't have any confidence and you're scared and feared and you're probably just holding yourself back from even like trying it or kind of exposing yourself to it. I was lucky in the sport we did a lot of upper body stuff, not with a bar, but with pull-ups and dumbbells. And so I didn't have that like intimidation factor for me. But I know I didn't have it because I had the confidence behind it. And a lot of women are in sports that don't have, you know, a lot of upper body strength building as far as like as much as swimming has. So when they do come in here, they don't have that confidence, and so they're just afraid to even expose themselves to it. And I think if you can expose yourself with a coach or, you know, even with like a habits challenge, and get a group of friends doing, you know, some of the same things that you're doing, you're going to become better at it, not only because you're practicing it more, but because you're just having a different relationship mentally with whatever the movement is.
I think like knowing your weakness is kind of a privilege. Like it makes it so much easier for you to gauge your progress, to pull aside a coach and be like, I am so bad at push-ups. Like what can I do to make my push-ups better? Like there's so much opportunity for you to progress compared to like when guys can just come in and get a muscle up on their first day. Like it's gonna feel really rewarding when you work really hard and then you do get a ring muscle up, or you beat a guy in a push-up workout or whatever it may be, but kind of tackle it like, okay, this is a privilege, this is an opportunity for me to get better, and it's gonna be really easy to see that because I can hardly do a ring row right now or whatever. So
I think you touched on it in the very first statement. There's such a psychological barrier for women when it comes to like every little piece of the puzzle. Like maybe you're not getting a ring muscle up because you don't want to pick up the men's weight on a kettlebell swing, and you're consistently from day to day, you're not challenging yourself in all the accessory stuff because all the guys in your class are using orange, so I clearly can't use orange because I'm going to do the girls' weight. Or when you physically could do the orange, you're doing the 53s, or they're doing the 53s, you're doing the 44s because 44 is for girls today. You know, like, but that's not your ability, and you're not looking at your ability. And I find myself realizing this when we're in BeachFit and we don't prescribe weights, and I go with whatever the guys are using, not because I'm going for what they're using, but because it gives me the freedom of not going with just the girls RX, if that makes sense. Like, because the guys will usually be like, well, now I have to lift heavy because Melissa is going to this weight, so now I have to do men's RX because she's doing men's RX. And there's like a little ego there, like you were saying before, of like, you know, depending on who you're lifting around, it can be a deterrent for a woman to go heavier, because guys maybe can jump right up and get their first muscle up because they are lifting heavier on a day-to-day basis, proportionate to their body weight. If I weigh the same as this guy, why can't I lift the same as this guy? You know, like you're not looking at your own ability, you're looking at your ability in relationship to a man, which is very different. And there are some times where I have to check myself in BeachFit where I'm like, just go pick up that weight. It's not gonna look manly when you pick up the same weight that guy's using. Like, or maybe it will look manly to some women, but that's not what I care about. What I care about is getting my intensity for this workout.
Yeah.
You know?
What I mean, something that just a personal experience right now that I'm kind of going through, because I have a new coach, and there's a lot of workouts where I won't have anything prescribed, and he'll just write like tough. So like some things I can go, you know, really heavy or do a really big set of, and that was tough. And then other things, it's not very heavy and it's not a very big set. And then, so here I get like he's getting a real snapshot of kind of the things that I'm really good at that are, oh, this is how far she can take it until it becomes tough. And then other things that are like, oh, like, you know, she was using a 18-pound, you know, kettlebell for this and could only do like 2 in a row, and that was tough. So she's giving somebody that snapshot, and then also for me, just getting that self-knowledge of like, wow, like, okay, like doing this was tough for me. And then also now I know when I go to do something that I was really good at, I can kind of push that limit because, you know, I was a heavier weight and I was more unbroken. That was tough for me. And I find myself on, you know, Sundays I do BeachFit in here, and, you know, there's days where I want to just take it easy and I'm whatever, not doing a super heavy kettlebell or whatever it is, and there's other days I'm feeling good and I want it to be a little more tough, so I'm pushing the weight on the kettlebell or the RPMs on the bike. And I feel like not only for women to have that just gauge in a workout, but just to be able to like train themselves that way, and like especially in a workout that doesn't have things prescribed or non-prescribed, to be able to like guide themselves that way is really important.
Yeah, that's I mean, I see that just as a huge opportunity in BeachFit, especially where we have everything staged, is like, you know, if you're someone who wants to push yourself and go heavier, you don't know when or how to do it. First of all, you can always use a coach as a reference, but you can go off of feel. And many BeachFit workouts have 3, 4, 5, 6 rounds of exposure to a movement, and you can start where you're comfortable, and then, hey, you might be feeling great that day, and you go a little heavier. And maybe the next day you do the exact same movement, exact same rep scheme, and you go back to your lighter one. But when there's days that you're feeling good, like take advantage of that and use that as a chance to kind of break through that ceiling and hit, you know, breakthrough plateaus.
For sure.
So you brought up kind of working with your coach, and I know we've talked about stuff of how your nutrition is evolving throughout the month during different times. So I want to talk about how training and how you're feeling in workouts might evolve specifically at different times of the month, and how you guys have to approach that differently.
I mean, I think that's such a good topic that can obviously lead to like a whole nother hour of talking, but I think as, you know, women, we have something that literally hormonally shifts every month. Like we have big hormonal swings where we could be feeling more run down, not as great. Sometimes you're feeling strong as an ox. It just depends, and it varies and changes every month. There's a couple things that I've been doing, or 1 or 2 things I've been doing to kind of like align myself with having really healthy, good cycles, and then also my training. And one of them is like seed cycling, which we can talk more about in another episode, I guess. You guys can look it up, Google it. But I think also just having a relationship with kind of what happens to your body every month, and then being aware of it and how it can affect your training, and not expecting you to feel 100% every day, but maybe expecting to give 100% of your effort, whatever that can be, that day, just to get, you know, that, I don't know, the stimulus of challenging your limits or training your limits through whatever you're going through. So just because I'm like on my cycle doesn't mean that I'm not coming to the gym or working out. Just means that I know that my effort might be dialed back a little bit different, or I might be just modifying things based on how I feel. It's a part of life, and I think that there's more research that we can be doing for ourselves to like make it easier on us. But I think also just being aware and knowing knowing that it's going to affect your performance, and dealing with it, managing it, is going to lead to a healthier you overall versus 5 days out of the gym, or just beating yourself up for not feeling good, or just being able to talk about it. Like, we have a lot of coaches on staff that have it and go through it, and a lot of moms that go through things. So just being able to know that it's okay to have those days and to talk about it.
Cool. Anything else to add?
It's good.
All right. The last note I had in here is just this idea that women can definitely compete with the men in BeachFit and CrossFit, and I think in many ways are better than the men in a lot of ways. And I think once you add the relative weight to it, like where you're not having women using the exact same weights as men in workouts, I think you do have this very equal playing field. And when we've seen it in like the open, where we see you have hundreds of thousands of data points going in, you see that a lot of times the women come up on top. They come up with better scores than the men do, where it's not really a big difference in what they're doing. It might be the difference of 15 pounds on a kettlebell or something. Like, it might be a really small difference, and the women are able to get more rounds, more reps. And I think it's cool to be able to look at it across the board, or do a workout like Jackie where women are beating men at the same weight. I just think it's really cool. I think it's good. And I think women should never feel like they can't compare themselves to the men in that respects, because I do think they can, and they can push each other, and if they want to compete, they can be competitive with each other and have fun with it.
Yeah, I think it's so fun to be able to be almost on that, like you said, like equal playing field. And I like to even challenge myself. I know I did a workout in here, and like the men had a different gymnastics than the women, and I was like, I'm doing the guys' gymnastics. And so like I took on that challenge, and it's so fun to just be able to kind of like, I don't know, throw down and have fun and make it challenging for me, but also I think that when a guy sees me doing what they're supposed to be doing, they get pumped up or fired up about challenging themselves. And it's just another way to train your limits and have fun doing so.
Cool. All right. That's it for our podcast. Thanks for joining us.